Good morning and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. Good morning, and I should say happy Tuesday because it is Tell It All Tuesday, and today we will be telling it all. Some of these articles are, very recent, and some are, from past week. So, just playing a little catch up, but what I do like about Tell It All Tuesday is that we get to dive into some articles that are of importance, right? And some are just kind of like off the beaten path that we may not have noticed because the news cycle is so large right now. And I just need to remind everybody just to stay prayerful and stay diligent because, again, all of the stuff that's happening is very Bible, how, the days are just going to go so fast, right? You're not even going to know if you're coming or going a lot of times, right? Things are going to be happening around us that are just so unbelievable that we're going to be like, what? But by the time we say what to that, there's three different things that happened over here. And so just reminding everybody just to keep your heart and mind focused on God and stay vigilant. And with that, let's get into our Kids Corner.
A boy named Colin dreamed of owning the biggest farm. He'd run through the fields shouting his goals to everyone. But his father always said, "It's not about owning land, Colin. It's about caring for it." Colin was too busy dreaming to understand. As he grew, Colin planted fast-growing crops to expand quickly. At first, it worked, but soon the soil became dry and his fields were barren. Frustrated, Colin realized his quick success wasn't lasting. One evening, his father told him, "Son, true progress takes time." The next day, Colin started over. He cared for the soil, planted trees, and worked patiently. Slowly, his farm came back to life. Years later, Colin stood proudly in his flourishing fields. He told the village kids, "Dreams don't grow overnight. Build your future with patience and care." Colin's journey proved that success isn't about speed. It's about building something strong and lasting. True success lies not in the speed of achieving goals, but in the strength of the foundation you build for the future. This simple yet powerful story featuring Colin can inspire your viewers to value patience and hard work over quick gains.
Yeah. Because is it nice to have small wins? I'm not going to say it isn't. It is good. But the small wins are letting you know that, you're building the proper foundation. But you have to take the time to build it, right? If you build it on sand, it will sink, right? And not to belabor this, but I want to bring it up before we get into honoring God with our body. There politically, a lot of people built on sand and it's sinking. And they're wondering why, because they're like, well, everybody should think like this. Not necessarily. And it's happening on both sides. So again, did they build properly so that they would actually produce a harvest, right? Because what you sow, so shall you reap. So what did you sow? Did you sow properly? Or did you sow quickly, not thinking anything through, and then wondering why there's no harvest? Just saying. And with that, let's get into honoring God with our body. So God, please guard our mind and our thoughts. God, help me to fix my thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. So I will think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. God, please protect our ears and help us listen to your voice. God, help me to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. God, please protect my eyes from sin's damage. God, I make a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully. God, please speak life over my mouth. God, set a guard over my mouth. Lord, keep watch over the doors of my lips. God, please help our hands to serve generously. God, help me to do good to everyone, and especially to those who belong to our family in the faith. And God, please protect my reproductive organs and help me to honor you, God, with purity. God, help me to honor you with my body. God, please help my feet walk along your path. God, let your word be a lamp for my feet and a light on my path. And that if you're new, joining us this morning, whether on YouTube, Facebook, or X, That is something that we do every morning, just honoring God with our body, just help getting our minds set and focused on what is right and what is true. So, again, thank you guys so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News for this Tell It All Tuesday. Let me check comment section, see if anybody has joined in yet. Yes, Bud McKenzie, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and good morning to you. And again, good morning to all of our listeners out there. All right, so let's get into it. Okay, so first we're going to check out what is trending on X. And this one's pretty interesting. I'm like, whoa, when did this happen? Apparently, this happened sometime last year. So there was a fake Texas arrest story divides online over migrant rights. Okay, so on March 2nd, that would have been yesterday, a post at Newswire Patriot claimed a Texas man charged undocumented migrants $200 each for rides, only to drop them at detention centers, sparking hero worship for some, like at number one Nick Dar, who called him a hero, while critics such as lawyer Mark Randazza labeled it fraud. Supporters saw it as clever payback amid Texas's record migrant encounters and border tensions. But no matching arrest appears in ICE records. The Justice Department releases or major news outlets. The image traces back to mid 2025 memes without sources. The story highlights how unverified posts fueled debates on immigration, sanctuary policies, and vigilantism, blending outrage with wishful thinking. So I'm like, what happened? I was like, I know there was like a whole lot of something, nothing, right? Because did he, pick up people saying that he was going to help them and then drop them off at ICE detention centers? Like, what? What happened? And so this is something from Libs of TikTok. Now, here's my thing. We're going to have to wait and see how this plays out. So, according to this news article, the FBI arrested Mario Cesar dos Santos Jr., who's in our country illegally for distributing fraudulent federal agent IDs and apparel to illegals, claiming it would make them immune from deportation. Santos is now facing deportation himself. Okay. So that's one story. So that's a lot different than somebody picking up people and dropping them off, right? This is actually a federal crime, when you are impersonating even an officer or definitely impersonating a federal officer. Like, what are you doing? But I know a lot of these things were happening last year where people, I won't say people, there were congressmen and women, there were other individuals, and I can't say allegedly because you can pull it up, where they were having town halls and they were directing people and telling them how they could avoid ICE, right? And apps and different things. It's like, oh yeah, if you see ICE in the area, put it on the app so other people can be alerted. Now, okay, all right, you can be alerted, but what started happening, and this is just my opinion, when they started interfering with the ICE investigations, I think that's where it went too far. It's one thing if you guys have your alert system set up. It's another thing when you have those alert systems set up and you're trying to deter somebody from doing their job. That should not be happening. You can do alerts all you want to, but you shouldn't be stopping ICE from doing their job, because that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to deport people. They deported people under Obama. They're going to continue to deport people even after President Trump is gone, because that's their job. Like, that's a thing. So all of this, oh my gosh, not. No, they're not. No, they're not. They were here before Obama even got in office. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Like, get your facts straight. Like, some of y'all, seriously, get your facts straight. right? Before you're out here just doing wild stuff, because it's really weird. Okay, so I just, like I said, I had dropped that, and I read through. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. So anybody in there in the audience want to, clarify anything for me? This whole thing with immigration, I think honestly, it's meant to divide us in a way that's almost cruel, because there will be people fighting for illegal activity as if it's legal, as if it's a right. Like what are you doing? And everybody else is like, what are you doing? This is our country. Nobody just gets to come over here and just be here. But what it does is it pits people against one another. We stop looking at the politicians who have actually written policy to allow this. And I'm talking about these mayors, Mayor Bass, Brandon Johnson, Eric Adams. Yes, you left office, but you still did the same thing that Mondani's doing. Mondani's just carrying it forward, right? Minnesota, Mr. Fry, right? Now we've got let's see, another one in Colorado. So it's not ending. This isn't something that's ending. This is something that's perpetual. So what's happening? Why are we fighting one another? I'm just saying. When they're responsible. That's when you start voting people out of office. And that's what we need to do. We need to make sure that we are removing people from office that do not have our best interests at heart. Sorry, I'm messing with my hair. Yeah. And we need to stop fighting one another. I just wanted to share that because, again, this is Tell It All Tuesday, and I want to make sure that we are telling it all. So I also now want to move into this video that I came across, and it was talking about reparations going to Africans. Now this one's really interesting, and when I did some research, looked through it, and looked at the legislation, I'm like, we did that. I wouldn't call it reparations in a sense, but they are getting funding in Africa, and it is our tax dollars. Like I just want to point that out before we jump into the video.
Back and do a part 2 of the USADF, or the United States African Development Foundation, which is business funds only for African businesses. And I can say that because the fund specifically says that the business has to be 100% African owned and 100% African managed. Not African American, African. All right? These people have had this fund since 1980, and they have been dumping hundreds of millions of dollars inside of it, okay? I wanted to see how much money these people have received recently, and I came across the GAO, which is the Government Accountability Office, and they said between the years of 2019 and 2023, our government has used our taxpayers' dollars to give African businesses and startups $141 million. And this was spread out over around 1,050 businesses. So if you break that down, that means each one of those businesses roughly received between $134,000 and $135,000 for their business. But this is the people that gaslight Black Americans. They tell us that they work so hard and we're lazy. They tell us that they're successful and we're lazy. They tell us that they're so educated. Why can't we do it? We can't do it because they're pulling our money away and giving it to y'all. $141 million. Black Americans, when we want to go get a business loan from the SBA, which many Black people are denied, right? Typically, that SBA loan is about $10,000, which is nothing to run a business. $10,000 plus you're going to have to pay interest on that money. This money that they're getting within this fund, they don't pay interest. They don't pay tax. They don't even have to pay it back. Free. They get it free. We have to set up GoFundMes and beg family and friends to support our businesses. But these people are getting the machine of our money behind them. So this is the difference between our success and theirs. We need to tap into that money. We need to stop that money flow. I told you once before, you guys hate Trump, but Trump is the president that tried to stop that money from going over there. Because he said we have a people right in this country that's at a deficit. That is why he told them if they're going to continue to receive that money, they're going to have to come up off those resources, and they're going to have to make trade and business agreements with the United States. If not, we're taking the money. And when he did that, you guys called him racist. When you did that, Congress, Democrats and Republicans, they stopped him from stopping the money. Just over the last 2 years, they've received $45 million. So you add that on top the 141 that they've gotten since 2019. So yep. Keep gaslighting back Black Americans. We're going to keep finding this stuff out. And we're going to, I ain't even going to say all that. We're going to find this out, and this stuff is going to come to an end. If we want a real leveled playing field, we're going to make it happen for real. So you guys have been tugging at the hornet's nest. You've been tugging. And now we done got upset, and now we out here to sting y'all up. I'll see you guys on the next one. Let me know what you think in the comments, please. Like, share, and comment. All right.
Okay. So he's like, oh, yeah. Did you guys know about this? Yeah, it's almost like when I found out about the Office of Civil Rights, right? Like it was just, just in the appropriations bill. I was like, what is this? What? Who's this money going to? To keep the lights on? And you barely have any cases? Like what? Where is this money going? Who is it going to? And why is it here? Yeah. Let's check this out. Okay. So I asked, can you pull the legislation referred to in the video, right? Okay. Now, the core legislation referred to is the African Development Foundation Act of 1980. Now, he called it the USADF. Okay. Yeah. Referencing USAID that was established in 1980. Okay. So Title V of Public Law 96-533 signed into law by President Jimmy Carter on December 16th of 1980. So this has been going on for a while. So this is the founding statute that created the USADF as an independent U.S. government agency codified by codified at Title 22 USC Section 290th at Esquela. Let's see. It authorizes the foundation to provide grants and support for grassroots economic and social development in Africa. Grants. So grants are things that you don't have to pay back. Support is something you don't have to pay back. And like the gentleman was saying, we are constantly told that we are lazy and shiftless. How dare you? You guys are always just taking advantage. Are we? How did y'all even get this money? It's like, it's really crazy. Oh my, there's a lot of comments in here. I need a moderator. Okay, so the law explicitly states the foundation has perpetual succession. That means it goes on forever until unless Congress shuts it down. Perpetual. Unless dissolved by an act of Congress, which is why recent 2526 proposals to abolish it, such as Senate Bill 1054 or House Resolution 7605 will require new legislation to repeal this act. So they're still going to get this money. It's just a part of the budget now, right? Right? It's part of the budget. Annual appropriations by Congress from the U.S. Treasury via Department of State, foreign operations, and related programs. Appropriations bills. The USADF does not generate its own revenue. It's 100% federally funded through regular congressional appropriations. That means our tax dollars. Okay? Just want to let you know where the money's coming from. It's coming from us. So as of fiscal year 2024, $45 million was appropriated via public law 118-47. The videos cited figures of $141 million from 2019 to 2023 to a little over 1,000 businesses plus $45 million in recent years, align with cumulative congressional appropriations tracked in the GAO reports and federal budgets. These funds are interest-free grants, no repayment, no taxes, for African-led projects, as the video states. Now, official sources for verification: USADF, Enabling Law and History, USADF.gov, about page, or Title 22 USC 290H on the Congress.gov/GovInfo website. Current appropriations. Check the latest SFOPS bills on Congress.gov. Spending details. So I said, does this legislation help those from Africa in the United States, or is it funding that goes directly to Africa? And that's what I wanted to make the distinction on, because if it's like, okay, the money can go to here to somebody that's from Africa here, okay. But what if it's going to Africa and they're still sending the money back here? It's tax-free. You don't have to control where the money goes. Is anybody checking to see if anything's been built with this money? Like, where's the compliance on these businesses? Are they growing? What are they using the money for? What's the development? Because every time, from what the propaganda that they share with us, you wouldn't think there was any money going over there. You would think all these Africans are destitute, but they're getting millions of dollars, right? Which, when you translate the currency, our dollar is worth a lot more than their money over there. So who's getting this money? And where is it really going? Like, I'll have to take another deep dive just to really see, like, where is this money going? So the legislation in question, the African Development Act of 1980, establishes African Development Foundation as an independent U.S. government agency. So this is a whole agency by itself. It's an agency, period. Its explicit purpose: to support grassroots economic, social development in Africa with a focus on African-led and African-owned initiatives. Again, I'm like, why? Why are we over there and we're not building up over here? And this was in 1980? Wow. So does it help those from Africa and the United States? No. The core program does not provide grants or direct funding to individuals, businesses, or organizations located in the United States, including African immigrants, African Americans, or diaspora-owned businesses operating domestically. Okay? So the money does not get invested here at all, from what this is saying. So key eligibility requirements from USADF's guidelines and official sources include: organizations must be 100% African owned and managed. They must be solely of indigenous Africans or nationals of the host African country. They must be legally registered African entities or in the process of registration. Projects must be implemented in Africa, targeting underserved, marginalized communities on the continent. In agriculture, off-grid energy, women/youth entrepreneurship. Grants up to $250,000 go directly to African grassroots organizations, enterprises, cooperatives, and entrepreneurs operating in eligible African countries such as Nigeria, Uganda, Kenya and Zambia, etc. The funding is dispersed on the African continent, often through local partners and country program coordinators in Africa. Official documents, GAO reports, and USADF descriptions consistently emphasize support for African-owned entities in Africa, community enterprises in Africa, and addressing challenges like food insecurity and unemployment in Africa. There is no evidence in enabling law, USADF's mission, or grant programs of funding for businesses or individuals inside the U.S., even if they are owned by people of African descent or recent immigrants from Africa. So, minor exception for diaspora engagement. So, USADF has occasionally partnered on limited diaspora related initiatives. An annual diaspora award mentioned in some past announcements or collaborations to strengthen trade links between US based diaspora and African enterprises. These are not core grant programs and do not involve direct funding to US based African owned businesses for domestic operations. The primary and overwhelming focus remains direct investment in Africa. So in short, this is funding that goes directly to Africa, to African-led entities on the continent, not to support people from Africa who are now in the United States. Okay, the TikTok videos point about not benefiting African Americans or diaspora in the United States. Okay, here we go. So I said, what was the true intent and purpose for this legislation? True intent and purpose for the legislation, the African Development Act 1980, was to create an independent U.S. government agency, right, dedicated to promoting grassroots, locally led economic and social development in Africa through direct support for African initiated self-help projects. Yeah. So that was its intent. That was its purpose. Again, they tell Black Americans, you're lazy. Yeah. Then why are you taking our money? Why are we even giving you money? Why are we even over there? I want this money. Not only do I want it to stop, I want the money back. Pay it back. As much of it as that can be clawed back as possible, claw it back. Claw it all back. Stop all grants right now. Right now. Like, this is ridiculous. No, I'm not doing that bleeding heart thing. No, stop it. Because there's people right here on the soil that can use that money to build up our country. So we're making things, right? We don't make things, we consume things. We buy things, we provide customer service in some instances, and some of that we're just outsourcing. What are we making? What are we doing? We're just a service industry. Doctors, lawyers, yeah, they're high paid, but it's a service industry. You don't make anything. You don't make the pharmaceuticals. You get them from somewhere else. Doctors, lawyers, time. That's it. For you, you're just giving up your time and you are paid well for it. But it's still servicing. You're not making anything. Yeah. Yeah. So the statute itself lays out the purpose clearly and unambiguously to enable the people of African countries to develop their potential, fulfill their aspirations, and enjoy better, more productive lives. Why are we paying for that? I'm not. Stop. Why are we paying for this? I don't like it. To strengthen the bonds of friendship and understanding between the people of Africa, and I said, stop that. We can have awesome bonds and I don't have to pay you anything. What did y'all do? Is this hush money? Like, I'm serious. Like, what is this even for? The United States does not do anything unless they've done something wrong. So I don't know what they did wrong. Did they feel that they had to like make up for something? But to me, this is something's wrong. To support self-help activities at the local level designed to enlarge opportunities for community development, to stimulate and assist effective and expanding participation of Africans in their own development process. They've got the minerals and wealth that they have on their continent is 10 times over everybody on the planet. They're just not working as a unified front because y'all would be terrified of their continent if it did come together. And we're sending money to them? It's 1980? Like, this is crazy. So, for historical context, the idea originated in the late 70s with Senators Edward Kennedy and George McGovern sponsoring early versions of the bill around 1977. It drew inspiration from the Inter-American Foundation's model of small direct grants to local organizations. It passed as part of a broader foreign assistance authorization bill, the International Security and Development Corporation Act of 1980, and was signed into law by Carter on December 16th of 1980. The timing reflected U.S. foreign policy priorities in the Cold War era, fostering goodwill in Africa, countering poverty-driven instability, which could create openings for Soviet influence, and promoting human rights and self-determination, consistent with Carter's emphasis on moral diplomacy, non-interventionism, and development aid over military solutions. But you weren't helping the Black people here? COINTELPRO was going on during that time. Really? So it was okay to destroy the Black community over here, but you're going to fund a whole other country? Woosa. My goodness. And I asked, did this overlap with apartheid? It says no. The U.S. African Development, established by the African Development Act of 1980, did not meaningfully overlap with or provide support to South Africa during the apartheid era in any significant way. Apartheid was the system of institutionalized racial segregation and white minority rule in South Africa from 1948 to the early 1990s, formally ending with democratic elections in 1994. The 1980 legislation created USADF to fund grassroots African-led economic and social development projects across the continent with focus on empowering. Right, we read that over. But I just wanted to check. I was like, okay, because obviously this came around in 1980. Apartheid had been going around, like I said, right. The whole apartheid thing was going on since 48. So you're saying no, it didn't overlap, but they kind of did, timing wise. I'm just looking at the timing. Okay. So South Africa was not a primary or eligible focus for USADF during apartheid. USADF's mandate targeted underserved and indigenous African communities in sub-Saharan Africa, emphasizing self-help and locally driven initiatives, historical records, and congressional intent. The USADF's own descriptions show no evidence of grants or programs operating in South Africa under apartheid. The agency's early operation 1980s onward concentrated on countries like those in Sahel, East Africa, and other regions facing poverty, drought, and underdevelopment, not the apartheid regime's territories. Okay. Okay. But again, still, I just, to know what was happening here in America and to know that you were sending millions of dollars, and till this day, look, it ain't stopped. It's still going to another country, building up their country, building up Africans. But you can't do that here. And when Black Americans here, and I'm not talking about just melanated humans, I am talking about descendants of slavery. When we, because I am one, speak up, it's like, why are you guys talking? Why are you getting so angry? Why are you so upset? We are tired of you just basically flushing our birthright down the toilet and sending it to other people who don't care. We're tired. We are tired. Look, and I'm sure everybody else is too. They don't want their tax dollars going over there. You didn't ask them. Just a mess. Now, Congress overrode Reagan's veto in 1986 to pass the Comprehensive Anti-Apartheid Act, imposing sanctions and directing some aid specifically to apartheid victims via USAID programs for education, human rights, and Black-led initiatives inside South Africa. However, USADF was a separate independent agency. Again, this is an agency with funding, federal. Okay? With a continent-wide grassroots mandate not tied to those targeted anti-apartheid efforts. Okay. All right, I'm gonna get off my soapbox with it. But y'all can see, I'm a little triggered. I'm a little triggered by it because, again, people keep saying, oh, there's no money, there's no this, but when I find stuff like this, I'm like, what do you mean there's no money? Okay, maybe not now, because you've been sending it like a drunken sailor at the bar, just buying everybody, hey, let's do another round. Stop that. It's just a mess. It's just a mess. So with that, let's take a quick break. And when we return, we will get into more of this news on Tell It All Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News, and we will see you on the other side.
A life empowered is closer than you think. We're all looking for a better way. Reimagine what's next with a new sense of exuberance. Why not power on like you mean it? Or power off blissfully? A better sleep is a better awake. You've never moved like this before. Energy nature intended. Imagine reprogramming the way you look at the speed of science. At longevity. At exhilaration. It's next level rejuvenation. Take your well-being from the inside out and outside in. The light within is ready to ignite. Be the light. LifeWave.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. Thank you so much for joining us here on Tell It All Tuesday. I know I got a little bit emotional in that last segment, but I wanted to read some of the comments. And Uncle Coolwater says, this is what happens when you don't have foundational Black Americans running our own government. Immigrants will always look out for immigrants. And Spud McKenzie signs off on that and says, spot on. Yeah, it's very crazy how we are so driven, I should say, to take care of others in their home as opposed to taking care of home first, right? Then charity goes broad. We're not taking people. We're still not taking care of people properly over here, and we're still bringing in more people to take care of them above our own interests. And we need a definitely realignment in our government with that. So thank you guys so much for your comments. Now I wanted to check on this other article very quickly, just tap into it. And apparently this happened last year. So USAID official and 3 corporate executives plead guilty to decade-long bribery scheme involving over $550 million in contracts. 2 companies admit criminal liability for bribery scheme and securities fraud. Okay, let me make this a little bit bigger for you guys. There we go. So you can see on the screen. Oh, I'm gonna have to make it just a little bit bigger. That helps. Okay. So 4 men, including a government contracting officer for the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, and 3 owners and president of companies have pleaded guilty for their roles in the decade-long bribery scheme involving at least 14 prime contracts worth over $550 million. Okay. So these are the players: Roderick Watson, Walter Barnes, Daryl Pritt, and Paul Young. Okay, the defendants sought to enrich themselves at the expense of American taxpayers through bribery and fraud, said Matthew Galati, head of the U.S. Justice Department Criminal Division. Their scheme violated the public trust by corrupting the federal government's procurement process. Anybody who cares about good and effective government should be concerned about the waste, fraud, and abuse in government agencies, including USAID. And I know how a lot of people really crashed out when their money was messed with, right? That totally happened. They had whole press conferences on it. How dare you shut down USAID? We need it. Do you need it? Or do the people you're working with need it? Or are you trying to protect people who, like this, commit fraud? Like what? Because guess what? It was an executive order. It was never law. Never law. Let me say that again. Never law. That we found out later on. Because everybody just assumed, well, you guys got a building, you got a budget. Like, okay, maybe you're official. Never. They were never official. But it was upheld until Donald Trump turned it over. Man, I'm just telling you, hornet's nest, wasp. It's bad. It's bad, bad, bad. Okay, let me see if I can get to it here. Yes. So, yes, and those are the individuals. I was trying to get an update and find out what's going on now. So, debarments. Following the guilty pleas, the U.S. government imposed government-wide debarments. Roderick Watson, 10 years. Walter Barnes, their predicate, 6 years each. This bars them from participating in any federal procurement or non-procurement program. That's it? They only got to do is a decade? That should be forever. It should just basically disqualify you from ever participating ever again. Oh my goodness, crazy. Sentencing status. So, as of the latest reports, sentencings were pending at the time of the guilty pleas announced. So, proposed dates include, all those are questionable and they never happened because it's 2026. Now, maximum penalties range from 5 to 15 years, depending on the charge. There are no public updates confirming that sentencings have occurred or detailing outcomes, suggesting that they may have proceeded without major additional announcements or are still pending resolution, not widely reported. Yeah, so you can defraud the whole government and you're still just walking the planet free. Close to $500 million. Yeah. Yeah, so that happened. Just wanted to, do that whole drive-by and leave that whole steaming pile. Sorry, y'all. It is what it is. Okay. Now, I think I brought this up last Friday. I don't know if I brought it up here or in a space that I go into afterwards, but I had to bring it up again because we are in a midterm election, and this is important. You need to know who candidates are or who they're not and what they're really doing. So let's check this out.
If we thought the Leering centers were bad, let me tell you about something I just figured out in Georgia. Someone messaged me this morning and they said, Brian Jack is the congressman for District 3. What do you think about the person running against him? So I looked her up, and her name is Yoloma Kema. And what I found was very, very disturbing. Have you ever dealt with a Nigerian hacking your bank account and some of the shady shit they do? I mean, they're about as bad as the Somalians. And I hate to stereotype, but I'm sorry, that's the experience I've had. And it's very frustrating when your money gets stolen. So let me tell you, I looked her up, and in 2024, she was filed on the FEC filing to run on the Democrat ticket in Louisiana's District 2 at the same time she was running on the Republican ticket in Georgia's District 13. Sorry, the Democrat ticket in Georgia's District 13. Well, she got bottom 2% of the votes in Georgia, never made it to the primary ballot in Louisiana. She raised over $53,000 and spent it all. Then in the fall of 2024, Matt Gaetz's seat came open in Florida. She filed to run for that seat, raised money, did not win that election. And now she's filed as a Republican in Georgia to run against Brian Jack on the Georgia District 3 ticket. So that is 4 elections, 3 different states, 2 different parties in 2 years. That's very discerning, very concerning. And I hope that this isn't a new trend where they're going to try to file to run in our elections just to raise a bunch of money and take the bag and run, which I question about a lot of Democrats that run in hard Republican districts if they're not just doing it for the money. But when y'all go to vote, you need to print up that sample ballot and do your research on who's on there. And if you're in District 12, of course, I'm running for Congress. I would love to have your vote. But that's something that we need to be aware of. And I'm about to start doing some digging.
Yeah. So I did a little digging, just a little bit. Y'all know how I get. So this person is Dr. Uma Ekpete Kama, or Uma Kama, and she is a Nigerian American physician and epidemiologist. He's an epidemiologist. Like, what are you running around doing in politics? I mean, you're making enough money as an epidemiologist. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you got a real job. It's a servicing job, but still, it's a real job. You're still a doctor. She's pursued multiple candidacies for federal office across several states since 2022. Okay, between the Democrat and Republican affiliations. So if she was doing this and she was just Democrat everywhere, I'd be like, okay, whatever, or just Republican everywhere. But she's flip-flopping between both parties, and nobody's caught this yet. Like, something has to be done about this person. So she holds a medical degree, and she has worked as a physician. She's got public profiles as that. She was born in Nigeria. She was naturalized as a U.S. citizen. You're naturalized as a U.S. citizen. And this is fraud. Yeah. So again, I want this person's naturalization status investigated. You're welcome. ICE. DHS. You're welcome. Okay. Giving y'all a freebie. Anyways, so she has filed for at least 6 federal races since 2022. Y'all, it's just 2026. Like, it's just March. March just happened on Sunday. What? Spanning 4 different states. See, the lady in the video, she only mentioned 3. There's 4. Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, and Rhode Island. How did Rhode Island even get in the mix? Like, what is going on? And for both major parties, she has not won any elections or advanced to a general ballot. Outcomes often involve failing to qualify or receiving low vote shares, typically under 5%. Here's a chronological summary based on FEC filings, state election records, and Ballotopia data. Now, here's the other thing. Like, she's doing all that. She's running and she's doing the FEC filing. So she's doing that legitimate part, I guess. But you have to actually be a resident of the state, not just domicile. You can't have domicile even in 4 states in 4 years. You would have to live every place for at least a year and then to have any qualification. Like, this is weird. Like, we really need to they need to buckle down on this one. But yeah, but I'm okay with this person being deported. I'm really okay with it because you weren't born here. You're naturalized. And again, in my opinion, the stuff she's doing is really shady. It should be illegal, and she just hasn't gotten caught yet. But if she does, I'm okay with her being denaturalized and deported and never be in America again, because this is disgusting. It's gross. So in 22, she ran for U.S. Senate in Florida against Marco Rubio. And she ran with no party affiliation. In 23, she ran in Rhode Island. So she went from Florida to Rhode Island. And she ran against the seat that was vacated, and that was a special election by David Cicilline, who was a Democrat. She was mostly self-funded but did not qualify. And this was an open seat in a Democratic race. Okay. And then in 24, she ran in Louisiana. So she went from here to here over there. District 2 as a Democrat to challenge incumbent Troy Carter. Did not qualify for the nonpartisan primary. And then later in 2024, so in the same year, which is so weird, she was running for Georgia District 13. That has to be fraud. I'm just saying, like, you can't. How? You're just like trying to, and District 13 is my district. That's literally the district I live in. Ran in the Democratic primary in May 21st of 2024 against incumbent David Scott and 5 other challengers. Finished with at least 2%. How did you even get some votes? Like, this is crazy. And Scott won with 57% of the votes. Her platform was not prominently featured in media coverage, which focused on more funded challengers like Marcus Flowers. So in the same year, she was going into a primary, right, against Scott, and almost like, okay, so I guess I didn't win that one, so I'm just going to go and run against this other incumbent in a totally different state in November. Okay. So 24, 25, we're still in 24. She filed as a Republican after that. Okay. Oh my goodness. And Florida District 1 for the special seat to replace Matt Gaetz. And she filed, but she did not qualify for the January 28, 25 ballot. The seat was ultimately won by Jimmy Patronis, and he's a Republican, in April of last year. Now in 2026, she's running again in Georgia, okay, and running against the incumbent Brian Jack in the primary that's scheduled for this May 19th, 2026. And this is her current active candidacy. She also has been noted as filing for Georgia's 14th district, Marjorie Taylor Greene, though it's not unclear if that's an active or alternative She's doing a lot. And she's naturalized. I need her removed from the country before people actually vote her into office. Oh my goodness, this is crazy. Oh my gosh. Oh, it's really insane. I'm just like, how are you managing this? But again, she is a doctor, so she's got some money. Like, she's got a real job. She's got a real thing that she's doing. I guess. I don't know. Would you trust her to be your doctor? I don't know. I don't know if I trust her. It's weird. Okay. So moving on from that. We have a article. And now this is a proposal. Now this has not happened. I just want everybody to know this has not happened. It is being proposed that they're looking into actually taking away bank accounts for people who are not here legally, right? So if you're here illegally, cannot get a bank account. Now, this is a proposal by the Trump administration, has not come through yet, but they're still doing articles on it. So let's just check out what CNN has to say.
Banks to take part in an immigration crackdown. What I mean by that is sources tell CNN the administration is considering requiring financial institutions to collect and verify their customers' citizenship status, something banks aren't currently required to do. One source says the new policy could come through an executive order. CNN's Matt Egan is following this story for us. So, Matt, what are you learning about how banks are responding to this possibility?
Yeah, well, Omar, this does appear to be part of the Trump administration's aggressive immigration crackdown. Sources tell CNN's Priscilla Alvarez and I that the administration is considering new action that would require banks to check the citizenship status of their customers. Now, this would be something that would actually apply not just on a go-forward basis, but also to existing customers, which is pretty stunning when you think about just how many customers the banks already have. Now, this action could also require banks to check a different category of documents than what they normally look at, including passports. Now, I do want to stress that nothing here has been announced or finalized. It's not clear here whether or not this would come in the form of an executive order or some other action. We reached out to the White House, and a spokesperson said that any reporting on policy that hasn't been officially announced is just speculation. But some Republicans do support this. Republican Senator Tom Cotton, he put out a post on X yesterday where he said, "I strongly support President Trump taking action to prevent illegal migrants from accessing our banking system." And he said he sent a letter to Treasury last fall asking for an investigation into this matter, and that he plans to introduce legislation on this issue shortly. Now, Omar, you asked about how the industry is reacting. Officially, they're not really saying much, right? Representatives from major banks, from bank trade groups, they haven't commented on this. However, sources do tell CNN that the industry is concerned here because they're worried that this kind of action, it could almost compel them to be part of the administration's immigration crackdown. One financial industry source told me that verifying every bank customer's citizenship status would be unworkable. This source said it's a bad idea. We are very alarmed. Now, banks are required to adhere to anti-money laundering rules, know your customer rules, but they don't track the citizenship status of their customers. So if this did become official, that would certainly be a significant change. There's also some questions about whether or not this could discourage immigrants from keeping their money in the bank, even undocumented.
Okay, first of all, when they always go back to, it would just be so difficult. Oh my gosh, stop that. Stop that. We have technology now, and if somebody has an ITIN number with a particular digit right in front of it, then you know they are not documented here. Because how are you even getting how are you getting a bank account without a social security number? I don't know anybody out there, Bueller. They want they want a left kidney to open up bank accounts. Are you serious right now? Stop that. And you're just gonna let people just walk on in scot-free and be like, hey, yeah, of course you can have everything you want to. No, of course not. Of course, we're not gonna check on anything, right? Why would we ever do that? Why would we ever do that? Now, again, this isn't something that the White House is doing. They're not doing this. It's kind of just chatter right now. I'll basically call it that. I'm okay with it, but here's the deal. It's not going to stop these people from doing illegal stuff. And what it would do, it would actually help track a lot of these people, right, who are here illegally, and ICE would be able to pick them up. And what they don't want to do is they don't want to share any of their information, right? We want to get drug lords, but we don't want to get people that are here illegally. In my opinion, crime is crime. You shouldn't be here. And you definitely shouldn't be getting access as a U.S. citizen would get access. I can't go to another country and just open up a bank account there, can I? I don't know. I haven't checked it. I don't think I can. You know why? Because I don't have proper identification as a citizen of that country to have an account. Let's just make it plain, make it clear. But we are affording people rights and benefits that they should not have because they are here illegally. And that's what it comes back to. I know they're trying to track people any way that they possibly can. And a bank account would be an easy way, right? Driver's license, that's another way. But some things are at the state level, right? And because banks are backed by the federal government, there are certain, pieces of information that they can be afforded to have from the banks, especially when they are trying to vet people. Yeah, this is why banks are, can help in criminal investigations when you've got, people moving around large amounts of money and they are criminals. Again, nobody wants to see these people here illegally as criminals, and they are. At the end of the day, they are criminals. They are here illegally. They are breaking the law, period. And there's no excuse for it now. So people are still walking around saying, hey, it's okay that they're here. You support illegal activity. Just say it. Just admit it. And stop trying to color it and make it all cute and beautiful and say what it's not. It is illegal activity. I need you to just, have some intellectual honesty. Now, with that, we're going to check out a video, and this is a product that actually our brother Riza Islam has on the market, and it's called Intellectual Power. So let's just check out this testimony from this mom.
Sentence he has ever put together on his own, ever. We decided to purchase Intellectual Power for my son who has autism, ADHD. We've been fighting this battle since he was diagnosed around 3 years old. When I say I haven't experienced anything that has worked as fast as this, I am not being dramatic. My son's biggest thing that we've been having trouble breaking through has been speech. I'm sitting downstairs on my laptop. He comes up to me, he shakes my arm and he goes, "Mommy." Before I even get a chance to respond, he comes back and he shakes my arm again and he's like, "Mommy, come on, let's go upstairs." And the world stopped because that was his first sentence he has ever put together on his own, ever. So my heart was just like, and I stopped and I looked at him and then I look at his stepdad and I go, "Did you hear that?" And he's like, "Yeah, what was that?" And I was like, "I don't know." I must have grabbed this bottle, read it, put it down, read it again, and was like, what is in this? Because how is it possible that worked that fast? This was only his third time having Intellectual Power, and it wasn't even consistently before that. Maybe before we took that pill, it was maybe 2 weeks. So I was sitting there fighting with myself, just trying to rationalize what just happened. We've noticed so many changes with him. Our friends and family are starting to notice. They're like really asking us, like, what are y'all doing with him? This is not the same kid that I just saw a couple of weeks ago even. It is just so much confirmation because we've tried everything else, like I said, and it feels good to know that what I'm giving him is healthy, is natural, is not going to be hurting his body, is not going to be damaging his body. None of those things that I was worried about before. So I hope Intellectual Power stays around forever because I'm looking forward to the day that my son gets older and starts to understand things and knows that when he is struggling, that he has a solution, that he doesn't have to worry about damaging his body. He has a solution that he can take on his own. He has a solution that is not a pharmaceutical drug that comes with a billion side effects. So Again, like, we've had so many positive experiences since starting Intellectual Power, and it is just so much easier than I thought it was going to be. Really is just as simple as cracking open this pill, mixing it in with his favorite smoothie, water, pineapple, mango, a little bit of organic blue agave, and that's it for us. And it's his favorite thing. Fruit smoothies is his favorite thing, so it is just such an easy process for us. I'm seeing that we're going somewhere. And now when I look at him, it's just like, I know that we're going to be okay. I know that you're gonna be okay. I daydream now. Like, just imagine what we can get done if we just continue. I hope Intellectual Power stays around forever, because I don't want to try anything else. I don't have to try anything else. We already found something that works for us. We're gonna continue to use it. I got another bottle waiting for us to crack it open already once we finish this one. So I just have to share that with somebody. If you are a parent with a child who has a developmental disability, speech delay, autism, it won't hurt to give it a try. This was such an easy thing for us to do, considering we tried everything else already. So I just wanted to share that with you. I want somebody who is dealing with what we deal with, going through what we're going through, to understand that your pharmaceutical medication is not the only option.
Yeah. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. And I'll definitely make sure to share the link in the repost for Intellectual Power. And that is produced by Riza Islam. Okay. And so next, oh my goodness, I'm so grateful that my husband does a lot. He helps me out a lot with some of these articles to go through, because he'll be like, oh, did you see this? Did you hear about this? And I'm like, thank you for being, eyes and ears for me out in the ether. So apparently, this is about a week ago, I guess, on the Young Turks. And they brought up a video of Laura Loomer. And it kind of is looking at the double standard going on right now. And I think a lot of people see it, and the double standard is what's okay for me and not for they. We'll just put it that way, right? I can do what I want to do, but you can't. Okay. Do what I say and not as I do. How many other ones can I come up with? I'm just saying that's what's going on. So let's check this out.
I want to know what people are actually going to do. My life is ruined. Does anybody understand how ruined my life is? I'm sick of it. I don't want to listen to people tell me that I'm a conspiracy theorist. They don't know what it's like to be me. My life is ruined.
Well, watching that meltdown helps me understand just how much of a Zionist she is. Perpetual victim, everything's about her. That was Laura Loomer, who, well, has the president's ear when it comes to things like hiring and firing people in the White House, or what we should do with foreign policy. But nonetheless, one of the nation's biggest Islamophobes has been funding the nation's largest Muslim civil rights and advocacy organizations. And it's all thanks to her crash out following her Twitter ban in 2018. Cenk, your 2 cents before we get to the details?
I hadn't seen that video before. It's going to be daily viewing from now on.
That was fun.
That was super fun. It's all about me as the victim. Oh, cry more, bitch. Okay, so why do I say that? You'll see later the things she said about.
Okay, now just to get you guys caught up, some of you guys may not follow Laura Loomer. I've seen her, and I did see her around 2018. And what ended up happening was she was banned from Uber, okay, and she was also banned from PayPal. So she didn't really have ways to move money around that she thought, were safe, obviously through PayPal. And, she couldn't use rideshare at all. Like, she got banned from it. And it was interesting because the reason for her banning at that particular time was just her political position. She hadn't done anything. She hadn't been arrested. She hadn't committed any crimes or anything like that. It was just her political positioning. So you're caught up.
Me in particular, and Muslims in general, she's the worst bigot in the country. And media's like, what? She didn't say anything against Jews. She's perfectly fine. All right.
So if you can recall, Laura Loomer was permanently banned from Twitter in late November of 2018. And that was due to her anti-Muslim comments, her Islamophobic statements. She decided to put all the blame on the Council on American Islamic Relations, otherwise known as CARE, and their Florida chapter in particular.
Okay, now CARE, and we talked about this yesterday on the show, in Texas, they are deemed a terrorist organization. So let's continue.
She alleged that they were fully responsible for her ban on social media and that they were trying to censor conservative voices. Now, she later sued. She sued them, and as you can guess, it didn't go so well for her. And the case quickly was dismissed by a judge who called her nonsensical. And even looking at the notice of removal, you can see just how delusional Laura Loomer was and is. So although plaintiffs do not expressly assert how much in damages they are seeking in their frivolous lawsuit, plaintiffs allege that CARE's conduct caused Loomer's income to be reduced by 90%, as well as other damage such as the loss of future employment and speaking opportunities, as well as reduced access to online and other resources for publishing, fundraising, and financial services. I would just venture to say that her own open, overt behavior is what leads to her losing job opportunities, but I digress. Loomer didn't give up. She actually appealed 3 separate times before the US Court of Appeals had enough and affirmed a $125,000 judgment on behalf of CARE and CARE Florida. And at this point, CARE, they even threw her a bit of a bone because that's what she was ordered to pay, $125,000. CARE comes back and says, you know what? We're gonna reduce the amount that she owes us. Isn't ridiculous. That no, but this is
don't
amazing. No, I'm glad they did it because it gives you a sense of how vicious and vile she is and how much she lies about CARE and Muslims in general, of course. So as part of a settlement reached in 2023 to address her outstanding debt, CARE agreed to let Loomer pay a total of $73,500 in monthly installments, among other terms.
Why doesn't she go ask her daddy in Israel? Why doesn't Netanyahu pay your bills? That's all you ever do is try to pleasure him. So yeah, what are you reducing it for? Why doesn't Paul Singer or Haim Saban pay her bills?
So for a while, things were fine. Didn't seem like anything had gone awry after that agreement and settlement had been reached. She had been quietly making monthly payments to CARE in the amount of $2,400 per payment. Now the story starts to get kind of fun, okay? Because Loomer tried yet again to get out of having to pay what she owes to CARE. And so after Florida Governor Ron DeSantis declared that CARE is a terrorist organization, she tried to use that or exploit that for her own purposes. So the court ruled against her when she challenged whether she still has to pay CARE, the settlement that was reached in court. The self-proclaimed proud Islamophobe lost. And the court said, no, you have to finish paying them back. So we'll end with the final word from CARE litigation director Lena Masri, who really had to make it sting for Loomer. Here's what she says. Since Ms. Loomer began sending her payments to CARE in 2023, our attorneys have used her funds to provide legal representation to the American Muslim community and advance free speech, religious freedom, and civil rights for everyone in our nation. We look forward to receiving Ms. Loomer's final payments and using the funds to once again protect American Muslims and our neighbors from hate.
That's awesome. Great job, CARE. So Laura Loomer said this about me dozens of times, about Muslims, hundreds, maybe thousands of times. She wrote just yesterday on X about me, all you do is lie. It must be an Islamic quality. Maybe it's in your DNA like a defect.
Can you imagine if you flipped it on her and you said that about Jewish people, which would be, by the way, disgusting. It would be a disgusting thing to say about an entire group of people. But for some reason in this country, it's totally okay for Laura Loomer to make broad generalizations, stereotypes, and smears about an entire religious and ethnic group.
Yeah. Well,
wait a
that's
minute.
exactly
Hold
what
on,
I
hold
wrote
on, hold
Access.
on, hold on, hold on. Stop that. They're either religious or they're ethnic. And someone who practices Islam, which is a religion, is a religion. That's it. There's no ethnicity. Muslims are not an ethnic moniker. If you practice Islam, that makes you a Muslim. That's it. There is no ethnicity. What are you talking about? They crack me up. Always trying to make this about race. It's nothing racial about a Muslim. You are practicing Islam. That's it. We have freedom of religion over here. That's it. And you're using it, right? In my opinion, in a way to position yourself, right? Because you can, because you're not going to use it over in the dust bowls that some of y'all have left. And I'm going to say that. Why don't you go somewhere where people agree with you instead of being over here? But see, on TYT, they're going to, kind of make the Muslim community look good. But see, there are two different types of Muslims. There are those Muslims that actually do practice Islam peacefully. And then there are jihadists that support Sharia law. Those are two different things going on. But what they are not, they're not an ethnicity. This is about religion. This is not about ethnicity. So I'm just saying, I just had to make that distinction.
Said, imagine if I talked about her Jewish DNA being defective, and she has a Jewish quality about her that makes her lie all the time.
I mean,
well, I would be canceled forever and ever. I would never be put on another media show ever again, and all of the national media would say this is a terrible anti-Semite and the worst person in the world. And look, by the way, if you said that, you are a terrible person. You shouldn't believe that. You shouldn't think that, and it isn't true, right? She says it, not a peep. Randy Fine said, let's murder everyone in Gaza. 2 different times, nuke them and starve them to death. No censure, no national scandal, no nothing. Mark Levin talks all the time about how Muslims are the problem and Muslims are defective and Muslims are terrorists and they love violence, etc. No problems, he's still on air everywhere, he's on fire, has a national television show. The pro-Israel first guys who are the most bigoted people in the whole country, who despise Muslims and proudly say it on air all the time. Never any consequences. So that's why I love this story, okay? There are laws in this country, and CARE, great lawyers, way to go, okay? And so I love that there were consequences in this case. But if it's up to the national media, there would never be consequences for Israel first. And they would say, if you criticize anyone who's Jewish or anyone who's even supports Israel, you should be canceled for the rest of time. You want to say the worst things in the world about Muslims? Jake Tapper and Dana Bash don't care at all. They're like, the girl, way to go, right? Now they didn't say that, but I don't see them getting outraged by Randy Fine or Laura Loomer or Mark Levin. Never saw them talk anything about those people ever, ever, ever. Never a national story. No one at the New York Times cares. No one in media cares because, it's only Muslims. And then they all pretend that they care so much about bigotry.
You know
but
why,
only
though, right?
if it's against Jewish people.
And see, this is where the line gets blended and weird and crossed. It's not about bigotry. Stop it. Stop trying to make this about race. This is, like I said, this is what trips me out about these people. Stop that. Stop it. Y'all are having a religious battle. Either it's a religious battle or it's a racial battle. You cannot have both. Muslims are not an ethnic group. You are a religious group. That's it. That's your lane, and that's it. And unfortunately, some people that practice that religion are terrorists, and they are proud of it. It is what it is. Sorry. Y'all need to have a meeting. Because I don't subscribe to it. So you guys need to have a meeting. You need to figure it out.
And then they use it to eliminate every opponent of Israel. But if it's against Muslims or Christians, shut up. No one cares.
Yeah, I mean, look.
Again, and why are you bringing Christians into this? This isn't even our conversation. Stop it. Stop it. And moving on. I got more stuff to cover. My goodness. I just had to say that was just like, okay. I mean, I get his point, right? It is a total double standard. And it is. And look, what is going on with Israel right now, outside of what's happening with the confrontation and conflict and bombings and all that stuff that we have. Hopefully we will not go into a full-scale war, because in my opinion, it will be another Vietnam. It will be unending. It will have no resolution, and we will lose hundreds of thousands of people, and we do not want that. Okay? Whatever the goal is, the end game, we need to know it. We need to have an exit plan, and it needs to involve no more people dying. That's what it needs to be. Quickly. Like, y'all need to wrap this up by Saturday, okay? And figure it out. That's all I'm saying. Figure it out. You've got till Saturday. We all had a meeting, and we all agreed to this. So you just need to catch up and do your job. Okay. So with that said, let's get into this article from Jew Almighty, and it's about the BAFTA Awards with Michael B. Jordan. I'll just play the video, let it speak for itself.
Delroy Lindo, two talented, successful, highly respected black actors, were subjected to the indignity of being called an N-word, hard R, live on stage while presenting at the BAFTA Award.
The first BAFTA of the night for a vital part of movie making.
Of course they were offended, shocked, and probably taken aback. They stayed composed, professional, and continued presenting. Even though they shouldn't have had to. They shouldn't have been put in that position in the first place.
That clip of Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo getting called the hard R by a man with Tourette's as they're presenting an award is mind-boggling to me. The entire internet just saw these two black men who were just trying to do their job and present an award get called a slur in front of an entire audience.
But to make matters worse, BAFTA and BBC chose to air that racist and embarrassing moment, even though they had hours to edit it out, just like they did other things they didn't want aired.
If the vocal tick that had taken place at the BAFTAs had been Free Palestine, would that have been edited out? Because we know that it was edited out, Free Palestine, when Akinola Davis Jr. said it during his speech. But then for some reason, the N-word being hurled at Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo, that was left in.
But with all of that happening, you would at least expect a real, genuine apology from the host of the awards, BAFTA itself, BBC, somebody. Instead, we got sorry if you're offended apologies.
Tourette's syndrome is a disability, and the tics you've heard tonight are involuntary, which means the person who has Tourette's syndrome has no control over their language. We apologize if you were offended.
And a repeated call for grace, empathy, and understanding for John Davison, who is an activist for Tourette's syndrome awareness. They didn't extend the same empathy and understanding of how hurtful and offensive that incident was for Michael B. Jordan, Delroy Lindo, or the black community as a whole.
The worst part about this is that all of you are ignoring the feelings of the black people and saying, oh, you just have to accept it because this man has Tourette's. I said in my last video, you can't control the tics. You can't control having a disorder, but he should definitely apologize.
But I'm Jew, welcome to the channel. Please like and share the video. Don't forget to sub. Now, let's get into it.
Delroy and I are delighted to be presenting the first BAFTA of the night for a vital part of movie making. We're here to celebrate.
That was clear as day. No hiding it, no ducking it. It can't be overstated how devastating that moment was for Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo, who were the first presenters of the night. Look at their faces. They deserve applause for being able to keep their composure and keep the presentation going. This is two great black actors, probably at the height of their careers, riding off the success of Sinners, which is really an achievement for black people in cinema, being called a hard R and have to stand there and take it in front of their peers. There's no embarrassment or humiliation equivalent that a white person could feel in that moment. Not to mention black people in the audience, the black community as a whole, having to be subjected to that and watch them go through that moment. The way Michael B. Jordan froze after that. Right. In a moment like that from BAFTA, you would be expecting an immediate acknowledgement and apology for how uncomfortable two black film stars were made because of a slur. Doesn't matter who said it. But instead, what we got from the host of the ceremony, Alan Cummings, was an I'm sorry if you're offended apology.
You may have heard some strong and offensive language tonight. If you've seen the film I Swear, you will know that film is about the experience of a person with Tourette syndrome. Tourette syndrome is a disability, and the tics you've heard tonight are involuntary, which means the person who has Tourette syndrome has no control over their language. We apologise if you were offended.
Apologize if you were offended ain't enough. We are offended. The black community is offended. The black men who were standing up there presenting with dignity are offended, were embarrassed and humiliated by that incident. I'm sorry if you're offended. Apology is not enough. It should have been to the gentleman up there. I extend my fullest, genuine apology for BAFTA and the incident that happened. Something. Not I'm sorry if you're offended when two black famous actors, damn near icons, are called the N-word, hard R, live in front of the full audience, their peers, and was aired. And Alan Cummings' handling of that situation was a sign of things to come. Because from that moment on, BAFTA and everybody else not black basically took the side of John Davison, who has Tourette, and a more severe version of it with the tic that forces him to say offensive things called coprolalia, which causes involuntary, uncontrollable outbursts of obscene, taboo, or socially inappropriate words or phrases most commonly associated with Tourette syndrome. And apparently it's really rare, like only 10% of people that even have Tourette's have coprolalia. And while you can understand that that's a disability, it does not excuse the racism or the words that came out of his mouth or the impact it caused people.
This BAFTA situation with John Davidson and Tourette's has been very eye-opening. My comment section on my last video was a slew of white people telling me that I need to educate myself on Tourette's. It's not that big of a deal. You guys don't know what you're talking about. And I say to you, you are some of the most delusional people known to man. When black people are explaining to you our very valid feelings of racism, disrespect, and stripping us away from our dignity and humaneness, you should listen. One person who has a condition, who lives with a condition that is Tourette's, that is very real, doesn't get to gain his dignity at the cost of two other black men. Hannah Beekler, who was a set production designer on Sinners, let us know that he used that word more than once. He said it 3 different times to 4 different black people. The worst part about this is that all of you are ignoring the feelings of the black people and saying, oh, you just have to accept it because this man has Tourette's. I said in my last video, you can't control the tics. You can't control having a disorder, but he should definitely apologize. And we're not asking for him to apologize because of his disability that he lives with, because he can't control that. He needs to apologize for the harm that his actions caused on national TV.
But instead of these men ever just getting a genuine apology from BAFTA, from John Davison, from anybody, they were told, and we were all told, that we can't be offended. We need to understand the situation. We need to show empathy and grace without that ever being extended to those men and how they felt standing on stage being called the N-word. To the point that Delroy Lindo said nobody from BAFTA even came to speak with him afterwards. Then it was kind of announced that sometime after that, John Davison actually left the award. But it doesn't change anything, especially after we learned that BAFTA and BBC had time to edit out that whole incident, the N-word being aired with these men on stage, and they chose not to. BAFTA and the BBC failed Michael B. Jordan, Delroy Lindo, the Tourette's community, and viewers when they allowed the N-word to be aired during the BAFTA Film Awards ceremony. With the tape delay, this moment could have been handled differently. The audio could have been muted in the broadcast, or just the word beeped out, something, anything. The segment could have been edited. Instead, the slur went out. There was absolutely no reason for BBC to not edit that out when they had been editing out other stuff all night before it aired. With the 2-hour delay, the BBC could have removed the N-word slur from its BAFTA coverage and chose not to. Meanwhile, it cut director Akinola Davies Jr. saying free Palestine, a clear editorial decision driven by fear of pro-Israel lobby groups. Shame on them.
To those watching at home, archive your loved ones, archive your stories yesterday, today, and forever. For Nigeria, for London, the Congo, Sudan, free Palestine.
So removing free Palestine to them is more urgent and important than removing the N-word being yelled at 2 black men on stage.
If the vocal tic that had taken place at the BAFTAs had been Free Palestine, would that have been edited out? Because we know that it was edited out, Free Palestine, when Akinola Davis Jr., my G, said it during his speech. That was edited out by the BBC because the ceremony took place and wasn't aired until 2 hours later. But then for some reason, the N-word being hurled at Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo, that was left in. A disability is a disability. My thing is, there was a lack of safeguarding from the organisers, from the BBC who were broadcasting it, and from BAFTA as a whole. There is an issue here. And the way that I would say white institutions decide and prioritize what is harm and what isn't, whether it was intentional or not for the word to be said, it doesn't change the impact that it has on those who it was said to, directed at, and those who had to hear it. Racism, one of the mechanics of it is humiliation. I can't speak for the two men who experienced that, but I would argue that it's humiliating. And then essentially people are doing all of this mental gymnastics to be like, well, nothing we can do. These things just happen. They're involuntary. Whilst I understand that, that does not diminish the impact of who, those who are experiencing it. And this is just a microcosm of what Black people generally face in society anyway. And I would like for the American Black History Month that we're currently in, some of you need to stop explaining to Black people how they get to feel about things that are only directed towards them in that moment.
There absolutely is no explanation for it. If they had time to edit out Free Palestine, they had time to edit out N-word hard R, and they chose not to because they do not care. And they didn't care how that event and incident affected the Black men on stage or the Black community as a whole. Because even in their statements afterwards, they were asking for grace and understanding for John Davison, and not the Black men that experienced racism, were humiliated on stage and had to carry on.
The thing you should know about this moment is that the BAFTAs were not streamed live. So they saw this happen in real time. Then when they edited together their broadcast, they decided to leave this in, not remove that moment or bleep it out or edit it. They chose to just show you this as it happened. And you should ask yourself, why is that? How they actually put together the broadcast is laid out in this article right here, because they were very concerned about political speech and the potential for people saying things they didn't like. As stated here, the BAFTA Film Awards are not broadcast live, meaning the BBC must edit a 3-hour show into a 2-hour broadcast window. The details are laid out here. Now, one of the things that was cut was the end of the speech from Akinola Davies Jr. Let me clearly say, fuck the BAFTAs. They did not care about John Davidson, did not care about Delroy Lindo, did not care about Michael B. Jordan. See them leaving this in as an insidious choice towards all parties involved. The question we all have to ask ourselves about all of this is why.
I think that's a really good point. BAFTA, BBC, put all communities involved in a horrible spot. The discourse online, the justifications, the goalpost movement isn't even surprising anymore. We saw people jump online and defend Donald Trump, posting the Obamas as apes. We literally saw them defend that and say it wasn't racist and it was taken out of context, and them trying to gaslight the Black community as if we don't have a right to be offended. Why are people offended on behalf of people who were in the room, who knew him, who were told he had uncontrollable tics and could yell out uncomfortable things? He just made all of those things up. Most people in the room did not know John Davison, and the presenters weren't actually warned about John Davison or the outburst, the tics that could happen until a few minutes before the event even began. So even if they didn't want to be subjected to that or were worried about what could come out on stage, it was too late for them to back out. Not like Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo were thinking, going on stage and presenting an award, there's a chance that I'm going to be called an N-word with a hard R while I'm talking. Who would think that? Michael B.
Yeah. And I think what people forget is that that word actually means you are someone who is unintelligent. You can't read or write. You're ignorant. That is what that word means. And obviously the two men standing on stage presenting the award are very intelligent, and they can read and they can write. But I think the lady, she summed it up very well. Stop telling Black people how they're supposed to feel when we get disrespected. If we want to crash out like a 2-year-old toddler, let us crash out. Okay? Because we're offended. All right? And everybody's offense looks differently. Everybody handles it differently. Now, obviously, Michael B. Jordan and Mr. Delorindo, they handled it very well. They were very professional. They did not give the side-eye slight. Because, see, me, I would have been like, and that happened. Like, because, see, that's just how I get down. Okay? I would have looked over there and I would have been like, are you better? Now, people would have got offended at me because they would have been like, well, this person, they have an issue. I don't care. I said it. I do not care. Just like you do not care if I'm offended. We're just going to have, the I don't care Olympics right now. All right? And whoever gets offended the best wins. And that's it. There's no over offense. There's no victim award. We're not doing the victim Olympics either. All right. It happened. You can get offended even if somebody has a disorder. Stop that. No. Some people are a lot more graceful than me. Right? I try my best to be graceful, but I'm not always graceful. I'm not perfect. No, absolutely not. I'm just saying in that moment, would I have been that person that would have just stood there and took it? No. I would have said something, which is probably why God does not have me in that arena yet. I'm still learning, right? I'm not going to be rude, but I'm not going to be silent either. Okay? And I'm going to say something. And maybe I would have said something to, make it known, yes, what you just heard was very offensive. And I'm sorry if anyone in the room is offended. I am extremely offended. But we're going to move on with the program. Now, I would have done that because, like I said, it's just me. Apparently, these two gentlemen, they're better than me. And I'll give them that. They were silent and they did what they needed to do, and they were very professional. And Spud McKenzie says, I would have suddenly had a case of undiagnosed Tourette syndrome. It's like, that just fell out of my face. I'm so sorry. I don't even know where that came from. Yeah, it's weird. All right. Now we're getting down to our final article that I wanted to go over. Now, this one I saved towards the end because I wanted to make sure that you guys got to take this one in.
Considered a conspiracy theory that vaccines might alter your mind, that they're meant for some sort of mind control. People said this during COVID-19. They said, oh, you know what? These vaccines might be doing something kind of weird to our brain. They might be doing this on purpose to us. And people said, oh, you are just a wacky conspiracy theorist. Well, now it turns out that newly circulating declassified CIA documents prove that, yes, the CIA actually has been, for decades, potentially researching how vaccines could be used for mind control, as well as many other methods. The documents that are circulating around are regarding Project Artichoke, is what it was called. Now, you're all familiar with MK Ultra, but this is a different mind control operation, apparently, inside the CIA. These documents here are called Special Research for Artichoke. They're dated the 21st of April of 1952, and there's a memo and an attachment. Also circulating around is this document here, which is a document from 1977. These are more artichoke files that were found later, and this is an internal CIA memo that was written in 1977 about these. Whoops, we found more files about this Project Artichoke several years later, a couple of decades later, 1977. Basically, the first set of documents, the Project Artichoke documents and memo, lay out what they want to do. So this says, look, we've got this grand idea of how we're basically going to drug people and do all kinds of weird experiments on them to see if we could control their minds. And it was all hypothetical. These documents don't show that anything was actually done. It just shows that we've got these really crazy ideas, and they're extremely unethical, inhumane, terrible, terrible ideas. And then the 1977 leak of documents say, oh, yeah, well, actually, the government did it. They did all of those terrible things they said they were doing in that previous memo. They did it. And now here's some of the forgotten data and archives that we have from when they did all of those terrible things, which if anybody thinks they stopped doing those terrible things, well, let's kind of wake up to reality. So let's go over what's in this 1952 memo and attachment and the various different types of mind control experiments the CIA was cooking up. And I want you to keep this in mind. You know, if they're willing to take people and experiment on them, basically torture them to where they become vegetables or they can be controlled in some way, then it is not a leap to think that the U.S. government, Epstein, a lot of people are talking about Epstein and whether or not he was a Mossad asset, but also even a CIA asset, which is maybe why the government is covering up so the Trump administration's like, we got to cover up for Epstein, because it really is a CIA operation as well as Mossad. It's not a leap to think that Epstein would be with the CIA doing all of these heinous crimes against children, young girls, against people, when clearly what we've seen time and time again is the CIA has absolutely no morals or ethics. They are above the law, and pedophile, no problem. Drugging people, no problem. Murdering people, no problem. All of that is no problem inside the CIA. So, okay, these documents, Special Research for Artichoke, dated April 21st of 1952, the memo and an attachment. Basically what these are is a senior TSS officer calls Artichoke of extreme importance and says no time should be lost in getting Artichoke research underway, offering money and men to push projects forward. So this was very important to them. Says he, quote, did not wish official communications in these matters because he stated that they were too slow, asking instead for a brief informal memorandum of projects that could be done in-house, or, they could farm them out to others. Now, the memo proposes developing long-term covert drugs that could be slipped into daily life. Drugs that were, quote, administered over a considerable period of time, possibly being placed in food or water that caused either agitation or depression. These, quote, should include chemicals or drugs that can be effectively concealed in common items such as food, water, Coca-Cola, beer, liquor, cigarettes, etc., and should also be capable of use in standard medical treatments such as vaccinations and shots. So there you have it. Oh, those wild conspiracy theorists, they strike again. It calls for an exhaustive study of gases and aerosols and oxygen deprivation. Gas guns, jets, or sprays, both concealed or open, should be studied, it says, quote unquote, along with, quote, possible permanent brain injury and amnesias following lack of oxygen or exposure to other gases. They have no morals. They have no ethics. They have no humanity. You may have seen the conversations happening online lately, but censorship is back, and it's happening
None, you guys. It's crazy. Now, I will definitely link the rest of the program that she goes into, but she does go into some more of what's happening with these leaked documents. And so, of course, you guys know I put it in Grok because I want to get the breakdown. And I just asking you outline the information. And so apparently, let me get down to it. So yes, it was done in the early 50s. So there was a 1952 reference and 1977 files from Project Artichoke, proposals for unethical experiments involving covert administration of drug substances via vaccines, food, water, and other everyday items. The goals included agitation, depression, or other psychological effects. There were more people depressed today. The other psychological effects, we've got people believing that they're men or women. You know what I'm saying? Like, we see the effects and everybody's like, what is going on? So outside of the spiritual, right, that can be occurring, the physical is also happening. Now, you got to remember, some of these doctors, and she gets into it later on in the video, are eugenists from Germany. Yeah. That's what's going on. So would they mind killing off certain segments of people? There are still people living on what's called Cancer Alley. There are people in certain parts of our country, regardless of their ethnicity, they are in areas where they are literally being poisoned. But my question, are they being poisoned and watched and documented? Like lab rats? Like, this is sick. Like, at a certain juncture, we're just going to have a conversation with our government and say, enough. We know how disgusting everything is, and we're tired. If you do not turn the tide, we, the American people, are going to have to. Enough. Close our borders, deport and denaturalize people that shouldn't be here and stop poisoning us and telling us we're the crazy ones. We're not the crazy ones. You've been killing us and poisoning us for years. We're not the crazy ones. Sorry. Now, other methods mentioned were gases, electric shock, dietary manipulation, and hypnosis. Alleged implementation on prisoners or unwitting subjects. We're the unwitting subjects. If they're putting this stuff in beer and sodas and all this other craziness, right? The host connects historical program to the broader concerns about government overreach, unethical experimentation, and potential modern parallels, right, with the COVID-19 vaccines and MK Ultra. Now, I did take another look at it because I'll do a couple of different searches because I'm asking all kinds of stuff. That's just me. Let's see. She links it. There was Operation Paperclip, right? The Nazi scientists that I had mentioned from Germany, historical background on Project Artichoke. It was a real declassified CIA program roughly from 1951 to 1953. It focused on interrogation techniques, behavioral manipulation, and special research into mind control. It evolved into MK Ultra, declassified files available via FOIA releases, the CIA's own reading room, and archives like the Black Vault do show proposals for drug administration in various forms, including discussions of covert delivery methods, right? While drugs in foods, drinks are mentioned in some memos, the scientific emphasis on vaccines as a primary mind control vector is interpretive and sensationalized in presentations like this video. The documents explore many delivery ideas, including aerosols, ingestion, but vaccines aren't a central or proven focus in mainstream historical accounts, right? So what Grok is saying is like, okay, yes, these things are happening, but it may not be pinpointed here, right? From the information that they could pull. But if you're putting it in everything, if you're putting it in vaccines, obviously you're trying to manipulate the public purposely and kill the public purposely. Like, this is very concerning. And like I said, there just needs to come a point in time with our government where we're going to have a full out good conversation, a very healthy conversation, in my opinion, just to go over some things because they're out of control. They really, really are. And so let's get to all sides. We haven't been here in a while, but it says media outlets differ in emphasis in Iranian celebration, protest, and mourning. I think there's a lot going on for Iran. So in the U.S., the New York Post, that leans right bias, highlighted celebrations from Iranian Americans in New York and mentioned they sang the old Iranian national anthem. It quoted people thanking President Trump, saying the U.S. was rescuing the Iranian people, and that this isn't war, but a human rescue. Now, Newsweek, that center, reported several celebrations across the U.S. in Los Angeles, New York, Boston, Washington, D.C., but juxtaposed these with demonstrations happening in the same cities. Now, around the world, Fox News on the right covered celebrations across Iran, Madrid, London, Berlin, Armenia. It quoted an Iranian American journalist who said, I grew up in a country where I was brainwashed to say death to America, the same country that saved my life 3 times and is now helping my people in Iran. It briefly mentioned anti-war protesters in the U.S. and Europe. Another New York Post article highlighted solidarity between Israelis and Iranians in London. USA Today, that leans left, several photos of anti-Iranian regime protesters around the world holding up the pre-1979 revolutionary flag, the Israeli flag, and photos of Reza Pahlavi, the exiled son of Iran's last Shah with the slogan, "Make Iran Great Again." So protest. Many outlets downplayed celebrations, instead highlighted mourners. Associated Press on the left shared video of thousands of Iranian government supporters mourning, and chanting death to America. In the Iranian cities Yaz, New York Times, that leans left, briefly mentioned celebrations but contrasted these with uncertainty and scores of tearful mourners hours later. It quoted an Iranian local whose earlier celebrations turned into disbelief after he drove through the area that was struck and cited others who were worried about food shortages. NBC, that leans left, said Camille's death was met with public mourning and quiet celebrations, with opponents of the regime who'd face a brutal crackdown in January largely stayed off the streets. It is interesting to see how many people are celebrating, and the other side, how many people don't like it. And I think, with conflicts like this, it's going to be that. But what if this would have happened under Obama? Would it have been a good thing or a bad thing? I'm just asking. Because under Gaddafi, killed Muammar Gaddafi, a man who wanted to liberate his people, and he wanted to actually make people whole, because he didn't want people impoverished in his country. He wanted to bring everybody up. You killed him. You brutally murdered him in the streets and then praised yourself about it. And that would have been former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. She said that she came, they saw he died. That happened. Are people upset because Trump did it? Are you upset because it happened? Are you upset because he was working with Israel to do it? This is something I don't want to be a forever war. Like I said, you need to wrap this up by Saturday. And after that, I don't want to hear about it anymore. Clean this up. Don't leave a vacuum. Make sure you are working with people so that the next person that comes into whatever they consider power, deal with it and stop. We need to get out of all these conflicts because we are spreading ourselves too thin. And this is how nations collapse. Like, stop. Enough. Now, this is something that everybody definitely needs to pay attention to, because will oil prices rise due to the conflict in Iran, right? Because if you can't get oil certain places, oil from certain places, where does that leave us? Now, here in the United States, we should not have an issue, but we do have an issue because we, instead of being more self-reliant and independent, we became dependent under the last administration because we stopped producing as much as we needed to. And now we're back to another administration that's like produce. But are we okay? Because the gas prices are going to go up, right? Because of what's going on. It's just cause and effect, right? So increased prices, no sign of panic. Now, NPR, that's left biased, noted the global crude oil price surged past 9% on Monday, but analysts speaking to the outlet said the crude market is extremely measured. I don't see panic out there. NPR also wrote that while prices rose sharply since before the U.S.-Israeli attacked Iran, it is far from worst case scenario. NPR quoted an analyst from the app Gas Buddy, who estimated the gasoline prices may rise between 10 and 30 cents on average over the next few days. Short-term increases, and economist Fox News on the right said he expected gas prices to rise between 25 and 50 cents per gallon in the short term. Part of the problem, Fox News pointed out, is that the conflict is near the Strait of Hormuz, through which nearly 1/5 of the world's oil supply passes each day. Additionally, Iranian strikes have hit some facilities in the Middle East, disrupting production. Exactly. So if they're not producing, where is it coming from? Again, supply and demand. If there's more demand than there is supply, price is going to go up. The Hill reported, and these are long-term interruptions, that diesel prices are expected to increase more than regular gasoline prices, potentially worsening inflation on other goods because shipping will become more expensive. Yep. Yes, so the consumers will pay. However, some analysts suggest that a regime change could lead to lower gas prices in the long term. In the future, Iranian government is more friendly to the West. Even if still, there's still going to be a pain point with the diesel prices. It is what it is. Okay, when the production is low and you still have a demand or even more demand and you have low supply, the prices are going to go up. So just make sure that we're staying measured, we're staying focused. We're not getting, too freaked out there, but these things are going to occur and happen. So just make sure that you are staying focused on God and staying prayerful. So thank you so much for joining me here for this broadcast of Tell It All Tuesday. We will be back tomorrow with Women and Wellness Wednesday. We do not have a guest yet. I have to double check because sometimes schedules do change. And so if we don't have someone this Wednesday, I think it may definitely happen next Wednesday. But thanks again for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News. And remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.